In this part of the animated news website series, we are going to focus on animating the navigation drawer. If you haven't already, check out the previous part of this series linked on screen and in the description down below. And with that, let's jump in. Here I have the starter code for this project. I've already run npm install to get all the dependencies. So now I'm going to run npm run dev. It'll load it up on localhost 3000. And when I try to load it, we're actually going to get an error here. And this is because we need to set an environment variable for this project, specifically for just telling Next the base URL of the project. Unfortunately, these things, best practice is to not upload them to GitHub. So this is one step you'll have to do on your own, but it's relatively simple. All you have to do is just go to the root of the project, create a new file. You can call it .env.local. And then in this file, we're just going to copy in this one line, setting the next public base URL variable, in this case to localhost 3000. Hit save, and you'll see already the project is loading, and now everything is working as expected. Great, so now we have the project running, so let's get started on the navigation drawer and animating it. You'll notice in this project, I've already gone ahead in the starter code and built out all the HTML, done all the styling for us already, so we can focus on the animations. So if I click on the hamburger icon, you'll notice there's already this navigation drawer here, but it's nothing super exciting. It just flashes up on screen. I can hit close, it'll go away. I can even click the overlay on the content and it will go away, but not the most pleasing of navigation drawers, in my opinion. So we are going to work on animating this in. Now, before we jump in, I'll just take a second to talk a little bit about how the app is currently structured. So currently in the app.tsx file, which is kind of the main file for this project, I've actually added the navigation bar and the navigation drawer into this file instead of index.tsx. And this is just because we know that both those components, the nav bar and the drawer, are going to be across all of the pages that we have. So might as well just abstract it out to the top layer of the app and then have this component dynamically change. So that would be the index.tsx file, the main home page, any of the pages for the individual articles, etc. And you'll notice we've kind of set up here, we've just set up here a state for navbar open, which is set to true or false. And that's what controls right now where the nav drawer is either showing up or is hidden away. So that's how it's currently set up. So let's head over to the nav drawer file. So navdrawer.tsx in the components folder. And let's go ahead and start adding some animations here. So there's a couple things that we want to animate. So the first is, very simply, we want to bring the drawer in from the left-hand side, have it slide in from the left. And then the second is having this content overlay come in, but fade in a little bit. So to make it, again, a little bit more smooth. So let's start with the navigation drawer first and having that slide in. So let's find the navigation drawer div, which is actually the second one here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to convert this into a motion div so we can use it with framer motion. Let's import framer motion, and then let's just find the ending tag as well here. So now it works. Great. So now let's set the key framer motion attributes on this motion div to have it start animating. So there's three attributes we're going to add here. The first is initial. And so this is telling framer motion pre-animation, this is how I want this component to exist. So in this case, what we're going to do is set the left position of it to be minus 25%. Why minus 25%? Well, you'll notice that here in the styling, in the tailwind styling, we've set the width of the navigation drawer to be 1/4 the page, or 25% of the page. So if we shift navigation drawer by 25% of the page to the left, that means it's going to be exactly off screen. So that's why we set it to 25%. Then we'll say, well, when it animates in, we want it to end at, well, we want the left position to be 0, of course, so exactly where it needs to be. And then we're going to apply a transition Let's say the duration will be 0.5 seconds. The ease, I'm going to just give it these parameters of a cubic Bezier curve that I like. So that's animate. And then finally, we're also just going to add an exit animation here as well, just given we want to also animate off screen nicely and not just disappear all of a sudden. So I'm actually going to copy the animate properties, paste it in left. We'll keep the same transition, but I'm just going to change the left back to minus 25%, like how it started. So what happens? Let's try it out and see. I just refresh the page. And then look at that. It nicely goes in. Well, we'll see it actually fades in nicely, but the exit animation is not working properly here. Now, why is that? Well, this actually is because we need to add one more property over the entire nav drawer. So if we go back to app.tsx, we need to add in the AnimatePresence tag around this nav drawer. Now, what does AnimatePresence do? AnimatePresence essentially tells FrameMotion that whenever the components within it are either added or removed from the DOM tree, to animate them in and animate them out. Not just thinking about animating when the page loads, but whenever a component gets removed from the page, even if the whole page is still up, we want to animate it out. So we've added just AnimatePresence very simply, just surrounding the nav drawer here. And now, if I come back here, the animation in still works. If I hit close, the animation out now works as well. Awesome. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing we're going to do is animate the content overlay. So let's go back to navdrawer.tsx. I'm going to scroll down and find this second div here, which is for the content overlay. You can see it has a black background, opacity of 70. So first, I'm just going to convert this to a motion div as well. There's no ending tag here because it's just all in one shot. And then let's add, again, the key attributes here for frame of motion. So first, initial. What I want to do here is I'm going to play with the opacity for the animation. So I'm going to have it start pre-animation at opacity 0 so you can't see it. When it animates, I want the opacity to be 0.7. And for the transition, let me just grab the same transition that we set up here because we actually want it to be timed exactly the same as the slide. And then for exit, I'm just going to copy animate, change it to exit, opacity of 0, but same transition. Now when I hit save and go back here, you can see it nicely fades in concert with the drawer sliding in. And as we slide out, it nicely disappears as well. Again, AnimatePresence allows us to have the exit animation work properly here. As a bonus tip here, one thing that you'll notice actually is when we open up the navigation drawer, we can actually still scroll the content, which is definitely not optimal for the user to have this experience, because what we would expect, I think, is it kind of is locked. So I wouldn't be able to scroll this page. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, it's actually relatively straightforward to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to app.tsx. And at a high level, what we need to do is say, based on the value of navbar open, we need to lock scrolling on the content. Now, how are we going to do this? So the first thing you'll notice is we actually already have a ref set up right now attached to the overall div of the app called container, which is going to come in handy in a second. The next thing I'm going to do is just set up a function that turns off scrolling. So how does this work? So I'm going to call it prevent scrolling. Takes in an event. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say e.preventDefault and e.stopPropagation. So this is kind of how we're going to stop the events from firing effectively. And then what we're going to do is we're going to end up attaching this function to the scroll event that we can track on the container. So for that, I'm going to encapsulate this in the use effect because we want this to keep running in the background. And so in the use effect, I'm going to grab the current value of the container. So with container.current. And then if we actually were able to successfully find the container, I'm going to say if the nav bar is open, I'm going to do current container.add event listener on the wheel event. So this is for scrolling. And I'm going to attach the prevent scrolling. And then I'll hit save. And actually, if we try it now, it will work. I'm scrolling. Trust me, I'm scrolling, and it's now locked away, which is great. But we're not done yet, because you'll notice if I get rid of it, I still can't scroll. So we have to do two more things. The first is, as is good practice when working with event listeners, we should also figure out what's the right time to get rid of it. So in this case, we'll do it in the return of the use effect. And we'll say current container.remove event listener on the wheel event, and again, prevent scrolling. So we'll take it off so that it takes off as well. This prevents scrolling as well. And then finally, we'll just, on the use effect, need to pass it the dependencies. And in this case, the main dependency is navbar open. So that means anytime navbar open is now updated, it will execute the use effect. So now if I hit save, and if I try this again, I can, and let me refresh the page. When I scroll, I can scroll. If I open the nav bar, I can't scroll anymore. If I close it, I can scroll again. In the next part, we will work on animating the content skeletons and improving the transitions between pages. I'll release the next part 1 week after this video is up, so be sure to get subscribed to get notified when it's live. I'll also link it on screen once it becomes available, and I will see you there.